First of all, you don't know me.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, drama girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens, smart girl, rough girl, fashion but you're tough girl. You could sit with us, girl. Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens.
All right, everybody, I'm just going to jump in and steal this intro because I am particularly excited about today's episode. We have, dare I say, a Drama Queens exclusive. Mm-hmm. Never been done, might never be done again. So if you're listening, well done. You're here for a great one. Because today we have not one, not two, but three of the James sisters. That's right. We have Taylor, a.k.a. Lindsey McKeon. We have Quinn, a.k.a. Shantel VanSanten, a.k.a. VanSanten. And we have Haley, a.k.a. Bethany Joy Lenz. And of course, you have myself, Hilarie, Burton, Morgan. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thanks for coming, you guys. So happy to see you.
Yes, so good to be here with all of us.
We made it happen.
It's only been like 2-3 years, right? Like, y'all look so much the same.
Having you all at the same time, it's like the Olympics. We get it once every 4 years. We're excited it's here and it's gone too soon.
I'm so glad you're finally here, Shantel in particular, because we've had Lindsey, but we've talked with, I've had conversations with so many people who are like, oh, even Austin was saying like, gosh, the Drama Queen's been going on for so long and they haven't invited me on the show. I wonder what's going on. I hope they're not mad at me. And then we're like, oh no, wait, you literally your character's not on the show yet. So it hasn't happened. So I'm so glad we finally reached the Shantel season where you're here. Yay.
I love it. It's so funny because I'll sit back. I'm like, I wonder what's going to be like the introduction. Is it going to be like Clay and Quinn's first kiss? Is it like, which was Sophia directed? You know what I mean? I'm like,
yeah.
And then it was like, can you come because your mom's dying? And you're like, oh, gut punch. At least it wasn't the divorce that happened like, 17, 16 episodes ago within one season.
Yeah. Well, I thought this was great because all three of us really got, aside from the episode where we were fighting in the pool, which was, there was a lot to say about that episode. We had a lot of work to do, and it was certainly fun to play with you guys. But this felt really poignant and meaningful. And I certainly hear more comments than anything about this episode from fans. And I don't know about you guys, but when people come up to me, I get a lot of Nathan and Haley. But the one consistent thing that I hear is when you guys did the storyline where your mom died, I was going through A, B, and C in my life, and it made a huge impact on me, and thank you. And so this felt like the right time to have us all together.
Mm-hmm. I love hearing that. That's like probably the favorite thing about being an actor. There's not too many anymore. But that is one of the best things to hear.
Before we jump into it, Joy, do you want to give the rundown of the episode?
I would love to. Thank you. Yes. So this is season 7, episode 18, The Last Day of Our Acquaintance, air date February 22nd, 2010. As Brooke angrily deals with Alex's tryst with Julian, Lydia's condition worsens, prompting Quinn and Haley to try and reconnect with Taylor. Clay is forced to deal with Katie's unsettling advances, and were they unsettling?
Yeah.
And Nathan helps Jamie come to terms with Lydia's impending death. This was written by our dear friend Mike Daniels.
Mike D.
Oh, I love Mike. And he did such a great job writing this episode and combining the sort of tenderness with also the necessary comedy and the other storylines. That's a hard blend to do, but you can always rely on Mike.
When we got done, I watched it last night. I'm in Texas I actually watched it with my mom, and it was the first episode I've ever watched with my family. My mom and I got to watch it together. But when we got done, she said, wow, there was a lot of sexy time as well mixed in with grief. I said, so we'll call it Sexy Chicken Soup for the Soul. I was like, we're going to rename the episode.
That's cute.
Perfect.
I love that. Oh, I love that you watched it with your mom. That's really sweet.
It just happened to be this way. And I thought it was very, poignant and perfect to watch it with my mother.
Yeah.
For both of you, Lindsey, have you watched the show at all since we wrapped?
No, I mean, honestly, I've never watched it fully. Anyways, but I didn't remember so much of this. I remember the emotions of being in the scene. I watched it with my husband last night, and he's like, "Are you getting emotional?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I was emotional in the scene. It's bringing up that same feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's surprising watching it. Like Tim, it's such a different era, one, and where we all were in our lives at that time is probably like a very different space to go back to and have memories of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that is kind of wild, and then to see it and be like, oh wow, like there's a lot of crazy. This is like crazy female storylines. There's a lot of exposure, as your mother said. And like, how many times did Taylor come into a scene with her boobs out and a robe on? And it's wild to see. It's just wild to see, and be 42 now and have such a different perspective on life and bodies and all of the things.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I realized in this episode, Alexander really just was brought in to serve as this boy toy character, just to serve as this, he's like a facilitator for women's, it was like a cattiness or something. I couldn't quite figure out what the point was. It just felt like he's here to give Alex and Victoria and Brooke a reason to be catty. It was just so strange. He didn't have any other real function so far. Maybe it gets better, but I mean, I liked him at the end with Daphne. That was fun.
Yeah, it was funny to see her just like full make out in the middle of the street.
Also, like a slap by an icon just hits different. And when that scene I loved, because when she slapped, it was just better. There was just more there. And so the slap and the kiss.
Oh yeah. It's so Dynasty. It's so old
Men
movie.
love it.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's like, am I in an episode of Melrose Place? What's happening?
That's what it felt like. I mean, before we dive too deep into our stuff, which it gets so, can get so heavy, and there's so many things to talk about behind the scenes of how this episode went. But can we talk about Brooke and Daphne on the floor talking? That those shots were great. It was really fun to see them doing something other than anything in our episode where it's not talking heads, people just standing there talking to each other. I love.
Yeah.
But this was good. This was a long time coming. The final revelation of Brooke's love for Julian, and they're coming back together, and the punch with Alex and all of it. I thought it was fun.
The slap, the punch, it was so good.
Also, it was this interesting thing happening where, as you all were losing your mom, we were watching Brooke get her mom back. So like that's that scene. I didn't notice it until the close over bros scene where she sits down with her, and she's like, obviously Victoria's always kind of just been like Victoria, who's just all about herself, and she's cutting. This season, we've seen her start to soften. But that moment in particular, I thought like, oh, how interesting. It's like, they're losing the mom that they've always had, and Brooke is finally getting back the mom that she never had.
Yeah.
That's a good take on it.
Mike Daniels, man.
Yeah. You can always count on Mike.
Also, Jana has that great line after Soph's punched her, and Brooke goes to Alex's hotel room, and Alex opens the door, and Brooke goes, "Oh my God," because she sees the black eye, and she goes, "Yeah, I didn't know you're on strength, did you, Bam Bam?"
That was cute. That was
well
good.
I think it's funny how you guys never, I don't know if you crossed paths for a long time. The Quinn and Taylor and Brooke characters were always on and Clay too, other than Quinn and Clay, but like you guys were. No, I mean Clay was there for you were there for the whole Taylor reveal with Quinn's husband, right? Were you in that episode?
Oh, the
Rob?
awkward dinner table makeout scene for sure.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
was super fun.
I think I missed that episode, so I didn't remember.
That they made you guys look like sociopaths for a couple episodes there.
That was crazy.
It got way weird, man. And the
So
fact that no one
weird.
chimed up was even weirder.
Yeah, no, I mean, we really were only, like, Quinn was really only intertwined in the story with family and then Clay, you know?
Yeah, it took a while before everybody really started integrating, but I think that's good. I guess that's part of when you're renewing a show and you've got a new cast and you're doing new storylines and new things. It's better to draw things out a little bit.
This was my first time. I remember having the one-on-one scene with you, Shantel, too.
Yeah.
And really enjoying that because that was the first time we got to actually like work together, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, where I so remember doing that scene as well and being like, gosh, this is so bizarre. Like we're sisters. We're supposed to have this history. And you're like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm your sister. Okay. Okay. Let's do this scene that's like charged with all this history and stuff. And, you know, that's where your traumatic family toolbox comes in and helps out.
Amen.
But,
Hello.
but it's always like that, you know, you're like, you'll do a movie and like the first day they're like, okay, sex scene is up. First day, nice to meet you guys, go.
Oh, yeah.
You know how it is, but it was so beautiful. Just the dynamic, you know, Lindsey, that you brought, because they had shown, you know, Haley and Quinn and like the bond that they had. And then, you know, you always have to have the sibling that like throws a rift, but I felt, but it wasn't just you coming in and being, you know, a selfish or whatever we say. It really, like, you can see your pain, you can see where it comes from. And that, you know, the beautiful scene you had with our mom where you were like in her hospital room alone and all of the things that were underneath the surface that came out in that scene where you just feel like you don't belong and, you know, you're not the good child and all of these things that you were so wrong about that you held on to that story and you start to empathize. I mean, you know, you're not some evil villain who just sleeps with our men, you know, you're somebody who's in pain and a real, you know, complex human. And you just did such a beautiful job of all of it that,
Thanks,
you know,
babe.
I felt for her and I was like, oh, she's my favorite sibling.
Oh, hey.
So true.
I love like doing this show and doing Supernatural where these shows go on for years and there's like an arc of my character. And each time I come back, I'm in different stages of my life. And I feel like the ending of these shows is like, this was Taylor's redemption. Like this was me getting to come back and you get to see that Taylor's actually a human, you know, she's not just an evil, horrible.
And how great
horrible
that you had that moment with Lydia where it's just the two of you. And Lydia says to Taylor, she's like, you are the most like me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was a whole different person before I was Lydia the mom. And I thought it was just so smart and so lovely.
Why'd you hide that from us, Mom? Why'd you wait so long to tell us? Played the good girl all these years.
Because Taylor never went home. She was never around long enough for Mom to tell her. That's why.
That get me.
But yeah, Lindsey, your stuff was so great. And to finally see you soften, because I mean, like your whole thing this far has been like, her uniform is booty shorts. Her one speed is bitchy. Like, you know, and so it was so nice to get to see like a talented actor go more and do deeper, do softer. And it was just such, I think, a great, you know, reveal for the audience to see like, oh, there you are. Like, that's the person who's in pain. And Shantel, we were talking about this last week. You do such a great job of being on the verge of emotion, which is such a tricky thing to do. But where it's like, it's such a powerful tool though, because I think it really pulls the audience in, you know, because it's like, oh, it's like there's more power to someone fighting back their tears than there is to someone pushing them. And we were having this conversation last week about how you do that so well. But yeah, like your stuff was fantastic. Joy, your stuff was great. And what I liked about it was all three of you were kind of different levels of grieving. Like you each had your own flavor and all of it was relatable. Yeah. So it's like, I think for anyone watching, they can find themselves in one of the three of you at any given point.
I think that's probably why this is the storyline that gets the most feedback on my end anyway, because no matter what part of the grief journey you're in, and whether you're losing a parent or a sibling, or just going through a time when you're even the loss of a relationship can, is a death in many ways. And I think people just connected with that, and the different ways that you process grief and try and find your way through. I totally agree, Shantel. Yeah, neither of you guys were here when you don't hear what we say about you behind your back and all the lovely things that we say about you. But it's true. Yeah, Shantel, the sense of holding everything in, and the way that there's a fragility to you that has a strength, like a spine of strength, the way that you are able to experience what you're experiencing. You're so solid, but it's like, I want to reach out and give you a hug, because it seems like you might collapse at any moment. And yet I have no doubt that Quinn is 100% going to be okay, whether somebody's there to catch her or not. And it's a really interesting dynamic to see. Lindsey, we were saying a couple of weeks ago, especially with that episode where the one before this, Rob, where Lydia tells us that she's got cancer, or was it two before this?
One before this, I think, right?
This
is a very quick storyline.
Like when we're going through the photos in the living room, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but it's at the end of that episode.
Is this where we're packing? Like we're in the room and I'm packing. I remember doing that scene with you. Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that's the one I directed or if it was before that, but you are a firework. It's like you never know when Lindsey's going to go off on camera, and it's so exciting. Like I never know what to expect from you, and it always made it so fun to work with you too, because it's the unpredictability was so exciting as an actor, and as an audience member now, to be so removed from it and watch you on camera and be like, what is she going to do next? I have no idea if you're going to laugh, if you're going to cry, if you're going to hit somebody, if you're going to hit yourself. I don't know if you're going to run out of the scene. I don't know if you're going to just like stop everything and calm down. Like I have no idea what to expect at any given moment. It makes it so fun to watch you.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah, it's true. And I felt that way in the scene between you guys. And when you walked in the room with Bess in her hospital bed, and I mean, Bess Armstrong, like what an actress. Oh, yeah. I cried a lot watching this back, guys. This is a rough one.
She's a force, but everything she says just like cuts. It's so clear when she speaks, there's no fluff. There's no, she doesn't put a whole lot, and I don't know how to explain it. It's like, she doesn't put a whole lot of her emotion through it. She's just like, this is what I need to say. I need you to get it, and like we were so lucky to have her. And I remember looking at her, and she eerily looks very similar to my mother. And I had was telling my mom last night sitting there, I was like, Mom, you guys look, my mom has like short blonde hair, like similar.
She does.
So crazy how similar they look.
Shantel, I never noticed that. You're absolutely right.
It was really, I remember at the time being like, wow, this is really freaky. Like, did they look at picture? Do they? And you were like, no, these were our parents all along. And I'm like, oh, it's so crazy. I want to share a small, interesting anecdote. You talk about like kind of holding that thread of like fragility. But I found out the scene where Bess and I are in. Again, I don't remember if it was one or two episodes back, but we're in the space that she rents for Quinn to have a gallery. I took a phone call from my mother that night, and while we were shooting it, and found out that my grandmother had breast cancer. So while we were going through, and my grandmother was such a warrior and fought it and survived. But it was such a bizarre timing of things, of course, which I find throughout my career, things like that happen where, you're like, this just could not be happening at a worse time. But then that's kind of the through line of what I'm watching for me, this 23-year-old version of myself going through and grappling with as we're doing an episode where our mother's dying. And I'm wondering if my grandmother, who is like my second mother, is going to die. And what is this going to be like? And what are goodbyes like? And, what is the big C word like? And it's really crazy the way that sometimes life parallels what our characters are going through, and nobody knew about it.
Did shooting this episode help you process grief, or did it feel false and strange? Like, I'm crying about something that's not real, but there is something that is real going on. But how do you're having to muster emotions maybe when you're not wanting to, or if you're feeling okay, and you like, how did you manage that?
I just remember I had never had a significant death like a mother. My grandmother, passed 10 years ago now, but from lung cancer. But at the time, it was like the biggest shock. And I think I felt a bit like a zombie doing this episode, and a bit like out of my own body, and not understanding and not really being able to process and grieve what it would even be like. And I think about the other parallel of when my grandmother did die, and my last conversation I got to have with her. And it's nothing like, what this episode is, but, I had to just go with it. But it felt a little bit more out of body and not actually real. And this isn't what would happen. And a bit like I just wanted to be removed and more have the scenes with my sisters, because that felt like an anchor for me rather than the reality of what was actually happening,
Such a strange thing about our job. Like, no matter what's going on in your personal life, death, divorce, childbirth, physical sickness, you got the flu. Yeah. Like, no matter what, you got to show up at work and hit your mark on your call time.
Yeah.
And if you're on a show like ours, there's a lot of emotional vampirism. So there's coincidence like you're talking about, and then there's stuff that's literally just being mined from your life to put into the show.
Yeah.
Joy and Lindsey, had you guys ever had like a significant death before we did this scene?
No,
I don't think before we did it.
So my question back to you guys is what Joy said. Like, how did it feel for you? Did it feel false? Did it feel like you were processing different grief?
I mean, obviously, like the scenes with you and Mom and all of the things, there was so much to pull on, in regular life for that. But the scene where she actually died, like, I remember working with my coach at the time, and I like the way she was explaining death to me and how people process it. It's so weird when you're actually in like the death scene, and it's not necessarily how you think it would be. Like, a lot of people aren't like, oh, somebody's dying. You're not like kicking and screaming and crying. Usually it's like there's something else that washes over you. That's this surreal, present, like almost detached, like experience of like, I haven't really processed this before. How do you process what's actually happening? It's a reality that everybody must face, but it's not something usually we're dealing with every day. And it's something so shocking, especially in our culture. Like, the American culture doesn't really know how to deal with grief and death in like a beautiful integrated way in our culture. So it's something that's always a little bit like surreal, and we're afraid of, and we don't fully understand,
That's so beautifully said.
I thought there was a really good moment of that with Haley and Lydia when it was just the two of you in the hospital room. And you have this moment where you realize, and you say, you're talking about her soup. And you say, I don't even have the recipe. And that was such an interesting glimpse, because obviously, like, it was just you realizing like the impermanence of everything, about how it's all about to be gone. And then the next little snippet where she's writing it down, and all you're doing is just watching her. Like, you could see the shift. That was one of those moments where you were like, oh, oh God, this is what this means. Oof.
And then when you give it back to your son, like at the end, when you're like, oh, this is up to me now. I carry this torch forward. Like those were very real moments of like what happens when you realize somebody's going to be gone, and how do you move forward, and what do you bring of them with you, you know?
But I think you're right that if you don't have personal experience processing a certain type of emotion, it's one of the interesting maybe blessings of our job, that to get to show up and have the opportunity to learn how to process that. I mean, I think that can be so freeing if you alleviate yourself from the pressure of, I have to perform this scene, I have to convey this thing that I don't know how to convey, and instead lean into that. I don't know how to convey this. I haven't experienced this before. I wonder what's going to happen. And then they say action, and you're like, what's going to happen? But I'm here for it. I'm here to believe the moment. I'm looking at Bess thinking, this is my mom and she's dying. How do I feel? And you just fall into it. Yeah, it's really interesting.
And Bess, to kind of going back to what Shantel said, I think Bess is like, have you ever watched a really good athlete and you go, this sport doesn't look so hard? That's kind of
yes.
like Bess as an actor. She's so good that it looks like what she's doing is little to nothing.
Yes.
But that's only because she's that good. You know, but I think if you were just watching this, I think a lot of people could go, I could do that role. I'm not doing much. And it's like, it's because she's really good.
Yeah, she knows how to not do much, because very often in life, there's a lot going on under the surface and not too much coming out on your face. You're not making faces, you're experiencing something. And there's an intimacy that only someone who's up close can see what's going on behind the veil. And that's what the camera provides for us, is that up close experience.
You know, there's a quote I always loved. I didn't discover it until, not when I was 23 doing this show, by a playwright, Mamet. And he says, in life, there's no emotional preparation for loss, surprise, betrayal, or discovery, and neither is there on stage. So forget the funny voices, pick up your cue, and speak out even though frightened. And I often come back to it still, because I think I don't have to know how to do this. I can be, I can't have an idea of how I'm going to do it, because we're not prepared when we're betrayed, frightened, we have loss, and it's just, you're just present and honest and truthful. And I know when my grandmother actually passed, shortly before, I was living in the hospice with her, and I had to leave to go do a job, and she was like, you have to go. This is what your calling is. This is, and gave me her grace to go. And I remember sitting on the floor next to her chair, and I knew it was going to be my last conversation face to face. And let me tell you, I did not sleep the night before. I was like, okay, I got to ask her questions. I gotta find out, something about her and grandpa. I gotta, I was just so anxious of like, how do I tell her everything I need to say? Like, do I write? And that moment came, and man, do I remember it so clearly. And we looked at each other and we're sobbing, of course. And all that came out of our mouth was, I love you. I was like, I love you. And it's all encompassing. And we both knew. We knew the life and the bond and the memories and everything that I was, going to carry forward. And those were the only words. We're just repeating, I love you, and crying into each other's arms. And I gave her a kiss and I left. And I just thought, how perfect. I could never have prepared for that.
Yeah.
And when I watch this episode back, I give myself, I was saying this to Rob earlier, I give myself some grace, because, that 23-year-old girl was going through so much and really didn't have any idea what loss was. But me as 39 now, I know me and loss are best friends, and nothing could prepare me for the way I think I'm going to be strong, or the way I think I'm going to say things when I'm going through, and the expectation I have for the moments or for myself. And it's so interesting that I come back to that Mamet quote, even in my own life, just to be like, I don't have to know how to do this. I just have to be present and honest and in my heart. And that's it. That's all I can do.
I wish we had both had this quote when we were doing the show, because I, like you, found myself in situations where I was way like this show, all of a sudden, like we signed on and they're like, great, your wife's super dead.
You're going through a divorce and you're 23. I'm like, I have now been through a divorce. Oh, I had no idea what a divorce would be like. I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't know, because these episodes would have been real different.
But how much it would have been so freeing to know that, though, right? Because back then I thought like I imposed all of this imaginary pressure on myself. This is what grief has to look like. Tears equal sadness, and that's just like the opposite way to approach being just in the moment and present. And like you said, it's like I have to remind myself just in day-to-day life of like, I have to give myself permission to be a human being.
Yeah.
Which means it's going to be constantly imperfect and it's going to be messy, but it's like, am I trending in the right direction? Am I trending towards growth? Great.
Yeah.
Then all of the hiccups are okay, but like when I catch myself being hard on myself, it's like, hey bud, you get to be a human being today. This is par for the course. Okay.
Yes.
Still figuring it out. At any age, you're still figuring it out,
Yeah.
You know more than you did yesterday, hopefully. But like none of us, I think, really kind of are going to leave this earth like totally exalted, being like, I got that in the bag, do it all over. I'd be so good at this.
Yeah, most people probably haven't gone to therapy, like haven't looked inward if they're like, I crushed it, 10 out of 10.
Right?
It's like, but did you ask around? Speaking of work in progress, there was a hilarious moment. There was 2 very funny, unintentional moments in this episode for me, which I greatly appreciated. And speaking of just being a human and trying to learn, there was a beautiful moment when Haley's making the chicken dumpling soup back at home. It's at the top of the scene, Joy. I don't know if you caught this. You go to take a little sip of it, and you're using a ladle that has a hole in it. So all of the water pours out through the hole, and you just kind of like at the edge of it.
I totally caught it.
I laughed so hard going like, I know Set Deck had a ladle or a spoon on set. Why did we give her the one thing not designed to hold liquid?
No, this was notoriously one of my constant thorn in my sides, was not having a working set. There was all kinds of facade, but I would open cupboards and there would be nothing there. And it was so frustrating because I would go in for a rehearsal and I might have opened the cupboard, I might not have, but in the scene, I'm like, actually, if I'm over here, I'm gonna make myself a mug of tea or whatever and open it up. And it was just a completely empty cupboard. So I actually am not convinced that there was any kind of spoon on set. I think perhaps I asked for one at the last moment and that's what was available. I said, great, let's go.
They were like, could you just use your hand? And you're like, no, it's boiling liquid. Get me a spoon. And this was like, this is all we got. The other really funny moment actually happened in the kitchen. It's when you are prior to, I think your mom passing. Yes, you are in the kitchen chopping vegetables. And you're having a very hard moment. And Nathan walks in. He's like, are you okay? And you chop your thumb or your finger and you're like, ow. And he's like, is it bad? And you're like, yeah, it's bad. And you have like a rag over it. And then you proceed to put your hands on your face, to talk with your hands, to put your hands on your face again. And I just laughed going,
and onions. I was chopping onions.
Yes, yeah. I just wish we could play the reality of it where there is just blood on your face. There's blood on him because you're gesticulating wildly. That killed me. I was like, all right.
Yeah, and onions in my eyes. Like I put my hands immediately up to my eyes. Like, hello.
You should have looked like Carrie at the end of the movie, not just gorgeous, perfectly lit, perfect hair.
I know. Yeah. Fail.
I watched you doing the chopping too, and you were chopping like so fervently that I was like, she's going to chop her finger, thinking it was. I didn't know that was the scene that was about to play out, but I was like, she's actually going to drop her finger. Be careful.
Oh God. Yeah, that was fun.
I remember reading the episode and thinking, is this just going to be like 3 wailing sisters? You know what I mean? Like that was my idea of, well, if our mom's dying, how are we even going to speak through these scenes? Like how are you, know what I mean? And, you know, it just, I find myself so, when I was watching it, so like taken back instantly to those versions of us and the conversations on the side of set and all of the stories behind the scenes, you know, that play in like a separate movie the whole time I'm watching. At the very end, when we were, this is so not funny, but I had to share it with my mom when you were dumping Joy the ashes and the wind was blowing.
Oh my God, the ashes, guys.
Mom's ashes were all over our black coats and then they're like, but you're crying, you're sad. And we are just like, guys, we can't, our mom is all over us. Like,
guys, do you also remember how full that urn was?
Oh, I know, mom was heavy.
Like, I don't mean to be crass, but like it was so like I remember when they said action, it was like, we're finally going to pour it. And we start to pour. And then it's like, there's more and there's more.
It went on and on.
It went on and on to the point where I was like, I either have to laugh or cry right now. This is so absurd, but the camera's still rolling. So I'm just going to keep dumping and just become overwhelmed with the fact that this is so much more than I expected. And I allowed it to make me, you know, cry more. But objectively, I wanted to laugh because it was so absurd.
Yeah. Apparently she was cremated with all of her earthly possessions.
Everything.
How very Egyptian of her.
when we talk about not being able to be prepared, like that moment, I was the same. I was like, oh gosh, I've never, you know, what is this going to be like? And it was between the wind and the amount of ashes and the fact you were still dumping like 2-3 minutes in and it was all over us. I was the same. I was just like, is this comedy? Like, is this okay?
Punked right now?
Like, you know, it was one of those that when I watched it, I had to share the anecdote with my mom last night. And I was just like, yeah.
I wonder if that's because remember, we didn't rehearse it because we wanted to be surprised. We wanted to like experience the emotion. So we didn't dump any ashes on purpose.
So there were rehearsal ashes in there. That's it.
That's what we should have done. Some rehearsal ashes. I don't know, but that was rough. And it was all over us. And then we're like, do we cut? Do we react to the fact that?
Do we like brush it off?
Do we brush it off? Like, what do we do?
Just cry on each other some more, I guess.
God. Also, who were all those people and where were the rest of our siblings?
Our family. Do you remember, like, they were like, okay, so like these 3 people are going to stand behind you. Like, we'll assume these are kind of like your brothers. Or, you know,
that's right.
I never understood, well, you know, the order of when we were born, how many siblings we had, who our parents were.
Yeah.
The fact that I would have been a senior when you were in high school. So then people will bring it up to me like, well, why didn't they show you? I was like, because I wasn't on the show then. But,
yeah,
you know, there's all of that. They were like, so we'll cluster some people behind you. Like just choosing some of our background extras is like, and what? These people are, oh, hi, sibling, you know, but we're not going to interact with them. We'll only interact with each other. All last minute.
Whatever we paid for Landslide was worth it.
Oh,
my goodness. I got to say, that's one thing this show consistently knocks out of the park is the score. It's just, it's so good. And then I think there's a Shania Twain song that played after that was
Sheryl Crow.
Sheryl Crow, thank you.
Now, oh
yeah.
I think I actually recorded that. I might be mixing up memories, but I know I recorded it. I think they asked me to record that song for this episode in case they couldn't afford the Sheryl Crow version.
I feel like I vaguely remember that story.
And then they did end up getting Cheryl's version of it, which is great. But I was also kind of like, oh, I want to hear my version of it.
Yeah.
How lucky they are that they just had you on the bench that they could go, like that you were someone's plan B. Like, how fortunate for the producers that they had you in the back pocket to be
Thanks,
like, yeah, you
Rob.
can cover us.
Rob, why didn't they ask you? You have so
It's this weird thing. I wondered the same thing, and then I remembered I am absolutely tone deaf. So that it's either that or my availability was just not great back then.
Yeah.
There was another song too. There was a song, is it Open Your Eyes? I forget, maybe it's Trent Dabbs. I forget who sings it, but I remember at the time discovering that song and hearing that it was going to be in the episode and listening to it before we shot the scene where our mother actually like passes. Oh, and that was like just a stab in the stomach to like hear over and over, open your eyes, because she was do that, and just like the thoughts from it.
How beautiful this thing that Mike wrote in of Jamie bringing in his solar systems, stars. Oh, that just broke my heart. It was so beautiful.
Well, about the Make-A-Wish, he's like, I have grandma to thank for that because she told me to make a wish. And then when he brought that in full circle, it was so nice.
Yep.
So great.
Just like the honest kid moment of, him being able to like tell that she's sick and she's going to die, and just there isn't like, this breakdown of like an adult understanding of, how it's going to change his life. But just that scene where he's like, she's going to die, and there's like this gravity to it that a kid brings that is so honest and raw. And, then there's still this beautiful hope-filled moment where he brings it in. It's like, make a wish, Grandma, like being able to give her what she gave him, that was so special.
Our show was good at that, at bringing things around full circle, remembering things from a long time ago. I mean, even what you were saying earlier about the Taylor storyline, like Lindsey, when you came in the beginning, I mean, was it season 2 that you first came in?
I want to say it was 2. I think so.
I feel like it was. Yeah, because I had just gotten married, right? Yeah, I think so. But to see that arc all the way through and to watch this redemption arc, it's just so interesting. It's so interesting the choices you made and that they really allowed you to run with that too. I feel like they just gave you space. Like, here's your lines. We trust you. Just go.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a beautiful thing that they didn't like, with this arc, didn't just pigeonhole Taylor.
Yeah.
And actually just wanted to see her experience and emotion and human side.
It was so interesting to me, the roles that each of us played, and the way that you got to just back off and say, I don't want to deal with this. No, I can't believe I can't believe you're giving up, and I'm not going to engage with this. I'm not going to enable you in this giving up of life. I refuse. And how that actually turned out to be just an indicator of your own pain. I wanted to see a whole movie of it. Like, it's such an interesting character arc. Was that fun for you to be able to come in and every single time I feel like there was something new, because you were always so good at creating layers underneath what was on top? Like, yeah, Taylor's speed is bitchy, but there was so many layers. There were so many layers of pain underneath it. Like, how did you manage that all the time? How did you manage for us to still love you and want you back and still like be interested in this girl and all of her issues and relate to Taylor, and yet also be on the surface just crazy and bitchy?
Well, that is very sweet of you to say all of that. I think there's just, I always, no matter where I was in my life or my career, I just always tried to be as like true as possible and bring all of the layers of me as much as I could access anyway at that time and space. But I think joy, honestly, it's just like the levels and layers of pain in my own life experience, and, wanting to get to feel that and excavate that as an actress too was one of the reasons I liked being an actress. It's like, if I have a hard time experiencing this in my life, or this is under the surface, but it's not healed, and I get to play a character that also brings that out, it's a cathartic experience.
That's such a gift though, because it's not always the case. I think there's a lot of actors that put on a mask and they go play a character because they're trying to actually escape from whatever their current pain is or the thing that they're trying to process through. it's like, it's a real gift that you have and that you give to the audience to be able to allow people to see in. It's almost permission to process their own pain too. Like you, in whatever you're doing, wherever you are in life, don't shove it down in order to perform and put something else on. Just use it. Like, let's keep working through it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what we're taught so much in life and our culture is to just shove it down, you know, like you don't really have that emotion, like get to work, like just live your life. But on a healing journey, and if you're a spiritual person, which I am, it's like, what is life actually for? What's the deeper meaning? Who am I as I'm here? What am I learning? How am I growing? And as much as everything in us wants to escape and run away and hide, like, one, that doesn't help. You always have to deal with your shit either now or at a later date. So like, why don't you man, woman up and do it? But also it's just like, what is my own legacy for me as I'm here, you know? And to me, as I've gone through everything in life, it's not just like making money, being an actor, doing this, doing that. It's like, it's what is my essence? Like, what do I get to take with me? What do these molecules get to take with me when I transition out of my body, you know? And I used acting to do that. I use my life to do that in a relationship. It makes it very difficult sometimes for the people around me. Unfortunately, it's not an easy journey and it's not one that everybody wants to take on, but this is my, life mission as I'm here. So thank you for seeing and acknowledging.
And also, messy is fun to watch.
Yeah.
People who have it all together are boring.
Yes.
The shelf life of someone who has all of their ducks in a row is very short. Whereas I think as a viewer, we are drawn to messiness. I think because we relate to it, we see ourselves in it, and it's also just more interesting. So that was, I thought, very appealing, the way that sort of your trajectory was over this last bit. And also, and this is just a testament to sort of how you played Taylor. There was always sort of, it was kind of touched upon, I think Joy called you a firework. There was always an unpredictability. And the only other character on the show who has a similar kind of vibe is Dan Scott, in that when Dan Scott comes on a scene, I'm like, oh shit, what's about to happen? And it was the same thing that, like, you'd come on the screen, I'd be like, oh shit, Hurricane Taylor, what are we about to get into? And then you're like, French and Quinn's ex at the dinner table. And I'm like, damn, I did not see that come. You know what I mean? Like, it was great just because the character was already written so big that I think you wisely went like, well, then I'm going to take big swings and I'm just going to let them pull me back. And it made for this really fun experience of watching her, just being like, I'm going to lean in because I want to know what she's going to do next.
Well, and it was so fun for me because, so often you don't get to play in all of that and like do all of these quote unquote wrong, bad, extreme things. And like Taylor lived in that space. And so for me to get to go in and play like the different levels of that, how fun.
I mean, that's what, at the very beginning, I'm like, she's my favorite sister because you ground her emotions in something that me as my, 39-year-old self, I understand. I see the pain. I see, where things are coming from. But your reactions to it, while they may be big and firework, you ground it so beautifully. It's so funny because I, at the time when we were shooting, was like, oh, I'm just supposed to hate her. And like, she's bitchy. And so we're bitchy. And you know what I mean? Like, that was the dynamic of me and my sister are best friends. So I didn't have that experience or understanding of that with a sister. And so I just kind of leaned in on like, well, whatever, Quinn thinks, like, she's not going to try to understand her, but it was such a different experience watching it, and seeing you and being like, wow, this is stellar. Like, this is so cool that I know, and I can see everything under the surface, even if your reactions are this. It's like, I know what this really is about. So it was really beautiful.
And I think that kind of speaks to like where we were at in life versus like where we are now. And that I think it is a much younger, I would say less experienced, perhaps immature approach just to be able to label someone with one word. That person's a bitch.
Yeah.
And then you get older and you have some life experience and you're like, there's a lot more to that story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That is symptomatic of a whole different thing going on, you know? So it's kind of funny that like back then when we were playing it was like, oh yeah, that's just who she is. And now as adults, we're like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Shantel, do you remember what happens for Quinn after this, like in the next few episodes, how the grief kind of like, I mean, is she immediately just Rob's laughing. Is this because of the whole Katie thing?
Yes, 100%. That's why I'm laughing. Yeah.
We don't get to grieve. We just go down a rabbit hole of, by the way, how have we not talked about the fact that in between all of this, Clay is off, and I didn't realize this was the birth of the Katie story.
Oh yeah.
I was kind of shocked a little bit about it. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is where it started. And then so like that was a totally different tangent. I don't even remember having an episode, not that I would remember all of it, where Quinn is still grieving. You know, I feel like we're just dumped into the next tumble dryer of drama.
I know for sure you don't grieve in 719 because it's your gallery opening. So the entire focus is the gallery opening.
That's the next episode?
That's the next one, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I think maybe at one point it's like, we think we may offhandedly say like, your mom would have loved this or something.
Yeah,
but
we
like,
must, yes, of course. It's in honor of her.
Everything else just kind of moves forward.
Yeah, this Katie stuff happened so much fast. The fact that she was in the second scene of the episode was really with this random roommate who we never see again. Nope. It was very strange. I don't know. I don't like this. I don't like this storyline that's coming. I don't like it.
No, I will also tell you, I don't like it either. I remember when they said, you're going to have a stalker. And I was like, cool. Yeah. That's a fun reversal. The guy's going to get stalked for a change. Let's do it. You know, who are you getting? And they're like, great news. We got her back. Amanda Schul's coming back. I'm like, wait, what? And like, but don't worry. We're going to put her in a wig for an episode.
Then she'll dye her hair. I mean, it was like, okay, guys, really?
It's just odd to me. Again, it's that she's being scouted by agents, which means she is clearly playing at a pretty high level. And she meets this guy and somehow goes straight up cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and just decides like, this is my new everything. I agree with you, Joy. The roommate was weird. I think it would have been more effective if she was just talking to herself. It would have explained this craziness.
Exactly. Because do we ever see this girl again?
Well, in 719, here's the funny thing. In 719, she talks to her in the room again, but we don't even see her.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I'd rather her at least just be crazy right off the bat, because otherwise now she's got this person in her life who's enabling her crazy. And then we never address that, which is strange. Yes.
And then, like, the roommate should have been, like, eating paint chips. So you'd go, like, oh, they're both clearly crazy, right?
Oh, my Lord.
You know, but the funniest thing was that at the end of the episode, after she has researched Clay, and apparently even though there was 0 people at Sarah's funeral, there is a Facebook page about her memorial where people are like, miss you, girl, R.I.P. Queen, you know. And so she's found that. She's dyed her hair, and then, like, it's not already so obvious we just brought the same actress back. She turns to the roommate and she goes like, plus I have a feeling, and she takes off the towel, reveals Amanda Schul's hair. I'm his type. And then she kind of is in the exact same pose and does the same smile that's on the computer. And then the camera, as if it's not wildly clear to everyone in the audience, the camera pans to the computer like, see, don't they look alike?
Yeah.
It's like hat on a hat. What are we doing, guys?
By the way, she's looking at a picture of herself as her, you know what I mean? It's like, we're just the same. Like, really?
Also, she had no moment of going, holy cow, I look exactly like his wife. Like, she didn't balk at the fact that she might actually have an identical twin in the world.
This was so badly done. I'm sorry. The fact that they could have, like, if they're going to do this for real, first of all, why not draw it out? Why not have her seem like a normal girl maybe actually dye Amanda's hair brown. Like, is it that hard? Can you not do like a rinse? Anyway, if they had to have Amanda back, could she not have had an accent or like a completely different personality? Maybe some kind of something that they could have let her explore a different side of her acting abilities that she's clearly so, she's so talented. And then why couldn't it have been a real slow burn? Like when you meet somebody who's a little off their rocker, you don't always notice it right away. You kind of think like this person's fun or they're a little wild or you just get like little clues here and there. And then eventually maybe like 6 episodes in, she dyes her hair and like, oh my God, that's right. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, this is freaking you out. I can dye my hair back. I really didn't mean to freak you out. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. This is terrible. Like slow, make it creepy. Where's the Hitchcock of it all? Where's the vertigo?
Well, that would require self-awareness, which clearly she has absolutely none. She traded that in for more cuckoo. And like, there's a scene when we first reveal her and she turns around the tennis court. There's the shot when we cut back to Clay of him reacting, and I remember that was just Rob reacting to what was happening on the show. Like, holy shit, we're actually doing this right now.
Here we go.
Okay, and then the fact that like. What would have made more sense is that Clay is just so caught off guard that he allows some sort of a romantic brief moment to happen. Like if there was anything that justified giving her a crumb.
Yeah.
Because the thing that's weird is Clay is nothing but professional. He calls her, he meets her in public to have a meeting. He quickly, whether he was really interested or not, doesn't matter. He quickly just goes, hey, I'm not your guy. Sorry.
Yeah.
She offers him a number. He goes, first of all, he should have just said, I have a girlfriend. Shame on you, Clay, but whatever.
Yeah.
But then she offers the number and he's like, ain't going to happen, sister. I'm good. So it's odd.
Had you just taken the number, maybe had you just taken the number and been like, yeah, okay, I'll deal with this later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And all she knows is like Clay's cute and he drives a nice car. And she's like, that's enough for me to throw my whole life away.
I'm in. We're getting married.
That's not how women are.
I mean, on this show occasionally. And also the fact that, because this is one of those ones where it's like the movie Home Alone. Like if you've seen the people redo it where like it's Home Alone, but Kevin just picks up the phone and like calls the hotel and calls his mom. And it's like the movie's over in 35 seconds, This is one where it's like, I don't understand why Clay didn't go back to Quinn and absolutely download. Like, holy shit, babe. You're never going to believe this. Can I show you a picture? Like the fact, the part that I bump on, and it gets much worse in 719, is that Clay treats it as if something inappropriate or untoward has happened. And to the point where she shows up at the gallery and buys a picture of Clay. And Quinn goes, hey, Clay, I want to introduce you to the girl I'm going to have to share you with. And Clay walks up and pretends like he hasn't met her.
I need to watch 719. I don't remember. She came to the gallery?
And Quinn doesn't recognize her? Like Quinn hasn't poured over photos of Clay's dead ex-wife?
Yeah. No one has a moment of going, it's like Quinn should have 100% gone like, what the hell? Who is that? And then like Clay grabs her by the arm and he's like, what are you doing here? I told you. Like the way you would talk to a mistress. So it's like, buddy.
Bad, guys. It's so
buddy.
bad.
So, Joe, you asked if I was grieving. Obviously, I'm in such deep grief about my mother. I don't recognize this woman looks like his dead. I can't.
I think we need to come up with a drinking game for this whole storyline. There has to be something for this Katie storyline that we can all take shots every time it happens. We're going to figure it out.
This goes into like next season, doesn't it?
I just remember walking on set that day. You guys were in some kind of hurricane and the house was, you were like trying to escape her in the house in the rain, but we were shooting on set. So it was like inside the studio. And I watched it for probably a half an hour and was like, this shit's so crazy. I gotta go. What's going on?
She locks me in the house and hunts me down. It's like a whole thing. She tries to kill me. We shot outside. We shot at the pool and the stage. But I feel like, I have to look. I wouldn't really not know, but I feel like this goes into something happens. Like my revenge happens like in season 8.
Jeez, it's that long?
Well, I know that. Yeah, I think I remember how the season ends for Clay and Quinn.
Well, yeah, I remember how it ends too. But then there's like, I come back and like avenge us in 8 with her.
Nice. I don't remember that at all.
Shantel, did you and Amanda have fun?
Yeah, we did. I mean, of course, like we had I mean, Amanda's just great. You know, we've seen her like in subsequent years and stuff. And it really was, I mean, it's difficult, I think, to play any villain. And she's actually just such a lovely human being that how the hell are we going to do this one? But a lot of the stuff was so intense with her and I, like, you know, once we like actually realize what she's doing. And she's great. You know, I felt lucky to like get to do such intense stuff with somebody that we had fun with.
That's good.
Yeah, Katie's one of those roles you have to go all in on, and you can't hedge or worry about the way you look. You know, you just have to go full psycho.
Yeah.
You know, which is it's a far cry from who Amanda Schula is, but she, to her credit, man, she went in.
She committed.
She gave them what they wrote.
It's just crazy that this is like in the midst of this episode, there is, I guess, you know, sometimes I feel like we were always in our own storyline or whatever was happening, and we wouldn't be shooting on the same days. So when I watch, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much happening in everybody's life that they had to, it wasn't like they had a dedicated episode of every scene was our mother passing. So it's just so crazy to look back and be like, oh, cool. While mom was dying, you know, Clay's out meeting the stalker that, you know, we're going to jump into that storyline.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's
so creepy.
Or how about Mouth and Miss Lauren? Because I have big feelings around this. So what you don't know is at the end of 7/17, it ended. So they've been doing this very weird dance now. Skills left for LA earlier this season. So he and Miss Lauren just sort of broke up. Like it was this weird thing. And then we find out that they're like not even talking. It's odd. And then like she just starts coming out. And of course, Millie had her terrible after school special drug story. So they broke up. And Mouth and Miss Lauren just kind of start hanging out. And it was one of those ones where every time I watched a scene, I kept thinking, oh, are they about to kiss? Because like I don't remember, you know, but the vibe is very like, what's happening in this room right now? So the way episode 7/17 ended was with Mouth saying to someone, because there was a whole through line of like, seize the day, go after what you want. And so there was this misdirective Mouth going like, I want to date you. I want to take you out on a date. The reveal was he wasn't saying that to Millie. He was saying that to Miss Lauren. So at the top of this episode, I was bummed that it opened with him being like, oh yeah, sorry, I was drunk. And she's like, I was, for a brief period, I was disappointed because it's like, we've been planting these seeds for like a half a season. What are we doing with these two? And she's like, I'd rather be your wingman than your rebound. I'm like, all right, I respect that. I get that.
But also they're out. Like they're already out. When did this conversation, like this kind of stuff always drives me crazy in a show when you're like, okay, but how did you get from point A to point B without having this conversation first?
Clearly they drove separate cars, Joy. Clear.
So he asked her to go out with him. She just stood there staring at him at the door. And then what happened between that moment and now they're suddenly walking through Mayfair, like the shopping center in Wilmington. They've picked up food. So something happened. They're hanging out.
You're totally right. I didn't even think about the night when it happened.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, wow. That's weird. Well, we do get a bit of a payoff though, because later in the episode, Miss Lauren shows up at the apartment and she kisses Mouth. And I'm like, let's go. This is exciting. And then Skills walks in the room. I'm like, okay. How did yeah.
Did he even have suitcases? I feel like he was had with like a Coke. I feel like he just had a styrofoam cup and like something in his hand.
That's so funny. Also, the fact that they were their entrances were spaced out by about 12 seconds. Yeah. So I just love the fact that like they didn't see each other.
Stairwell.
Opposite stairwells. He stopped to send a text message, but it was fun writing that I found myself going, yeah, all right, let's explore this. And then immediately it was like, and here's the crimp in that plan.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the whole thing feels a little decoupaged together. And I wish
Does that mean piece together, like randomly?
Yeah, it's like messy glue.
Sorry,
like
guy
you just
here. I have no idea.
You don't know art
your French
references?
fashion words.
No, it's glue. It's glue and like little pieces of paper that are cut up.
Okay, thank you.
We did it in like 4th grade. No?
You didn't decoupage things?
I went to public school, Lindsay. I don't think we used
went to
any
public
French words,
school.
okay? Decoupage.
Okay, poster, plaster. I don't know. Poster
Thank
board.
you.
Yeah.
Dumb it down for the guys
hey.
on the podcast, would you?
Yeah, but I liked that they had skills walk in. I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens. I just wish I believed it more. I wish I was more invested. That's all.
I love that Rob is invested, though. I mean, he was like waiting for this kiss to happen.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Joy, having watched I've watched 19, and so we're gonna have a much larger discussion about it because more stuff goes down, and I have a hot take. So there's your teaser for next episode, listener.
Woo-hoo!
Tune in to hear me get on a soapbox about Miss Lauren and Mouth.
I can't wait. Well, okay, we have a couple things before we wrap up the episode. We've got a listener question. This is from Tina, and she wants to know, if you had to pick a reality show to be on, what show would you choose? The Great British Baking Show. Even though I can't bake, I would want to be on that show. I also might go on Love is Blind because I think that's hilarious.
I would want to host F-Boy Island. It's so good. I mean, listen, I can't host because I think that Nikki, who hosted, is amazing and she's wonderful. But like, I fell in love with watching F-Boy Island because it's this character study of like the new generation that I'm no longer a part of because I'm not young. I'm like, thank God I don't have to date nowadays. This is like when you're in your 20s, this is terrible. So
yeah.
I would just want to like go host, I wouldn't want to be on it.
Lindsay, the question, if you didn't
Reality
hear it was,
show question?
Yeah.
No, just say no. I would just say no. So many of them are so filled with drama. I would just my nervous system would just shut down. But I think now that I've done a lot of construction and home decorating and stuff, I was like, man, I should have just been filming all of this.
Yes.
And sent it out and done that kind of reality show. That would be kind of cool.
You could. And you should.
Do it.
Robert?
I think, listen, if summer's approaching, it's obviously going to be Survivor because there's no better way to get that hot summer bod than 3 weeks of starvation.
Hey, I love Survivor, by the way. We were just watching it last night.
Yeah, it's our show here. So every week, I mean, listen, that show is
season
wildly
40,
difficult.
What season are they on?
I don't know.
We're watching 46 right now, but there's at least 4 we haven't seen. So they've done easily
Jeff
50.
Probst is 80 years old by now.
Still looks
and
great.
still look amazing.
But I think I watch the show, and I know everyone, you hear contestants say it, they're like, it's so much easier to watch the show. Because I was thinking about could you imagine there's Tribe right now is historically bad. They haven't had fire for 10 days.
Oh.
They've been only eating coconuts for 10 days and they're not sleeping. Can you imagine what version of yourself you would be
worst.
After no sleep and no food for 10 days and you're losing every challenge? I would be the worst talking head because I would either just be crying hysterically or I would be pure vitriol. It would be terrible.
Have you guys ever watched the one I'm obsessed with is Alone, and it's on video, and I'm obsessed. They film themselves, and there are times they make puppets,
Wilson.
Yes, just like Wilson, but they make puppets or they've painted their faces and I'm because they're alone. And at the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, I would love this. I'm such a hermit crab who loves being alone. I wouldn't survive, but I would love to do this. And then, you get into a few episodes and you're like, I don't think people were ever meant to be alone. Actually really, truly sequestered because almost all of them go a little cuckoo.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I'm going to change my answer though. History's Mysteries. You guys are inspiring me. The more that I think I would want to go do some kind of History's Mysteries show where I get to go explore places that have to do with historical archaeological sites and find out things about history that we never knew. I think that would be really fun and exciting.
You're going to choose that over being on Love is Blind, Joy?
Oh, that's a tough one. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Sign me up to travel.
I would, if we're going to change answers, I would say if I was hosting a show, anything food related, like put me on Great British Bake Off, Iron Chef. I mean, I'll even do Beat Bobby Flay.
I'll do the Great British gluten-free Bake Off.
There you go.
Where I can have all the gluten-free treats that people try to make. I'm down.
Okay, do we want to spin a wheel?
Let's spin a wheel.
What is spinning a wheel?
You're about to find out, Lindsey McKeon.
You know, in high school, when they have the most likely tos at the end of the yearbook. All right, so this is our most likely to. So you choose who in real life of our cast, and then who of the characters in the cast are most likely to host their own talk show. That's really funny.
Hilarious.
Well, listen, I mean, Dan Scott's the layup answer for characters, right?
Yes, for sure. I think Mouth could come in a hot second place. I could see Mouth hosting his own talk show. Yes?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. In real life.
I mean, in real life, it's Rob. Come on.
Clearly.
Obviously.
Both of you.
Joy, would you want to?
No. No, I didn't. I just did Kelly Clarkson, and I haven't done anything that's that fast paced before. Like I'm more of a drop in conversation. And I realized leaving that, it was the first show I'd ever done that was that, like, you have to just get your thing out in sound bites. You have 5 minutes to say everything that you need to say. And it is a skill that I don't have. And to have multiple people come in throughout an entire day, and you're shooting you do 2 episodes a day is what she does, I think. And you get like 3 to 5 minutes with each person. That just sounds miserable to me. It's like all small talk all day long. I couldn't do it.
But Rob does such a good job of, I always found this from like day one of meeting you, like the references that you can pull from years and years, even before you were born. And then you like definitely make jokes and sound bites. I'm like, it is a skill that I don't have either. I'm like a long-winded, take you on a journey.
Yeah, me too.
You'll end up at the answer somewhere. But like, Rob is so good. You're so good at like the comedy, but then having the heart and, the soundbite moments and, looping in historical things about Boys to Men, even though, whatever that it is. Historical moments.
The fact that you just combined those two things in a sentence is my favorite.
History from the 90s.
Well, thank you for saying that. I give all the credit to high functioning anxiety.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Childhood trauma and high functioning anxiety. Oh, yeah. So we also do an honorable mention, which is just it's sort of like your shout out of the one thing you really liked the episode. Maybe, your favorite takeaway. Maybe it's something we haven't discussed as much.
I mean, honorable mention for me is to Mom. Like she was like you said, she was the glue. She was the glue of it all. And I could see us all looking like sisters, and that was our mom, and she was our glue. So that's my honorable mention.
I love that. Well, I mean, I've complimented both of you enough to say that you both did an exceptional job in this episode, through all the grief and everything that we had to process through. So I'll give my honorable mention then to
yourself,
to Jana Kramer. Can you imagine? To myself, to Jana. She always surprises me. She's another one of those actors where you never quite know what to expect. It's a different type of unpredictability because of the nature of the character. But she was much more grounded in this episode. This character was so much more, like, she just keeps dropping into better and better versions of herself. And I think Jana's been really masterful at that arc, going from someone who started out almost as wild and crazy as our friend Katie to going, much more mellowing out, going through her own dramatic grief, trauma journey, and finding herself into a place of like some semblance of peace. And I'm really enjoying watching her. Every time she's on screen, it's like getting better and better.
Yeah, she's great. It's been nice to see her get to have levels, because initially it was just the the only two speeds were high, high and low, low. You know, it was very manic with her, and that's so tough to play. And now that she gets to do some smaller stuff, you know, you see that she's very, very good. You know, she brings it. My honorable mention, I know we've talked about it at length, but it would be the quartet of the James women. I'd say the three of you and Bess. I mean, you guys are this whole episode, and everyone brought it. It was all so good. It was also just so grounded. None of it felt like it was a push or a pull. It all felt like the audience got to come to you, and it was believable. And like I said, I think there's so many entry points for people to relate their own experiences of grief and loss between the three of you. And then just the way Bess played it. So yeah, man, hats off to the four of you. Y'all crushed it.
Thanks,
I always
Rob.
love working with you girls too. Like I always felt good about our scenes and what was being brought to the scenes and the openness and the willingness to play and feel and all of that. You know, sometimes with actors or scenes, you can feel blockages or they have all their own stuff going on. But I feel both of you always showed up present and to play and to like get your hands dirty. And that makes life so much easier, you know, especially with these kinds of scenes.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel that way about you too. You too, Shantel.
All right, so we'll see you all in another 4 years. Is that what we decided?
I'm so glad we got the three of us together, the four of us. Rob, I'm so glad that you helped to facilitate all this too. And just to like have the three James sisters together felt really amazing.
Thanks for letting me crash your sleepover, guys.
Thanks for making it fun.
You learned about new arts and crafts that you're now going to have to go with.
Decoupage.
I can't wait to talk about decoupage to all of my dude bro friends and have them go, what? And I'm going to go, you don't know what it is? Ugh, Google it, bro.
Right. Next episode, season 7, episode 19. Every picture tells a different story. Come back. Robert has quite an opinion for you guys on this next episode. Love you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thanks for having us.
Love you guys.
Mwah.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Don't forget to leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram at Drama Queens OTH.
Or email us at dramaqueens@iheartradio.com. See you next time.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens, smart girl, rough girl, fashion but you're tough girl. You could sit with us, girl. Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens.